Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into one of the most frequently asked questions about the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. Why haven't Prince Harry and Meghan Markle had their titles stripped despite ongoing controversy and public petitions calling for their removal? This just isn't about protocol or family drama. It's about constitutional law, parliamentary procedure, and the complex reality of how the British monarchy actually operates in the 21st century. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why this process isn't as simple as the king signing a piece of paper. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell. We cover royal news, politics, pop culture, and everything in between. So stick with me. I'm going to break down, the big reason, well, three main reasons why King Charles cannot just strip them of their titles. Here I just have a picture of King Charles, and as we all know, the line of succession as him, Prince William, then it goes his three kids, then Prince Harry, and then his two kids. So Prince Harry is actually the fifth in line, and that will never change even if his titles is taken away. So I just want to start with the fundamental legal reality of it all. The monarch cannot simply remove ducal titles at will. This is a common misconception that needs to be addressed. When Queen Elizabeth II granted Harry and Meghan the titles of Duke and Duchess of Sussex on their wedding day in May 18th, which I have a picture of that, and I just thought it was hilarious. Like, she had her number. Like, I don't think anything went over that queen's head. She knew exactly who she was dealing with, 100%. So unlike honorary titles or appointments that can be revoked by royal decree, peerages are protected by centuries of constitutional law and parliamentary precedents. The key legal principle here is that ducal titles, once granted, become part of the peerage system and are governed by specific acts of parliament, not just royal prerogative. The removal of dukedom requires legislation action, meaning parliament must pass a law specifically authorizing removal. This isn't just a technicality, it's a fundamental protection that exists to prevent the arbitrary removal of titles for political reasons. This system was designed this way after centuries of monarchs using title removal as weapons against political opponents. Currently, there are only limited circumstances under which titles can be removed, and these are governed by very specific legislation, most notably the Titles Deprivation Act of 1917. So the British Parliament essentially only has the governance to do this, and it was from this Titles Deprivation Act of 1917. It's the primary legal mechanism that currently exists for removing British peerages and royal titles. But here's the crucial point. It was written for a very specific reason during World War I. The act was passed to deal with British peers and royals who had sided with Germany during the Great World War. Essentially, it was designed to strip titles from those who had committed what amounted to treason by fighting for and materially supporting enemy forces. So it's an old act, and it doesn't really stand for these 2 days, but who knows? There could be World War III going on, so who knows what's going on. Maybe it will come into act again, I'm not sure. But the act states that titles can be removed from those who, during the presence of war, have borne against His Majesty or his allies, and who have adhered to His Majesty's enemies. This language is extremely specific, and it relates directly to wartime treason. So why can't this act be used against Harry and Meghan? Simply put, because they haven't committed treason or fought against Britain in a war. I think they haven't committed treasons. They're committed assholes. I think they're just assholes. They're not committing treason is essentially what it is. Writing tell-all books, giving interviews to Oprah, or starting a Netflix series, however controversial, doesn't constitute treason under British law. Some have argued for expanding or amending the 1917 Act, and there have actually been parliamentary bills introduced attempting to do this. In 2023 and 24, there was a Titles Deprivation Act 1917 Amendment Bill introduced in Parliament specifically aimed at creating new grounds for title removal. However, these bills have gained little traction and face significant constitutional and political hurdles. The reality is that Parliament would need to pass entirely new legislation, creating new grounds for title removal, and this would be politically controversial and constitutionally complex. And the British monarchy has typically stayed out of all kinds of political things. I think they support whoever the PM is or the prime minister, but they really don't get into anything controversial when it comes to politics. And despite these legal hurdles, there's been significant public pressure for title removal. Multiple petitions have been submitted to the UK Parliament calling for the Sussex titles to be stripped. Again, I just think they have bigger fish to fry when it comes right down to it. I think no one there at the end of the day, the people in the UK really don't give a shit about them, and they care more about what's going on in their lives right now. One petition on the official Parliament website called for using the Titles Deprivation Act 1917 against Harry and Meghan, citing immense damage their behavior since their marriage in 2018 and their abandonment of the royal family has done to the reputation of the monarch. However, the Parliamentary Petition Committee had consistently rejected these petitions, stating the use of royal titles are a matter for Her Majesty the Queen, who is now King Charles, and not the government of the Parliament, which seems like it's very contradictory because the act is saying it is a legislation thing, it's a Parliament thing, and now they're turning around saying that they're throwing it back on the king. So this is just a very complex constitutional position. While the monarch grants titles, removing them requires parliamentary action, creating a very legal catch-22. So I think the king is just stuck between a rock and a hard place at this point. There have also been private member bills introduced, including a removal of titles bill that would give the monarch broader powers to remove titles. But these bills face enormous parliamentary hurdles and have received little government support. Like I said, I think they have just bigger fish to fry going on over there. And the political reality is that no government wants to spend valuable parliamentary time on what many see as a distraction from more pressing national issues like the economy, healthcare, and housing. Like I said, I think the people in the UK have more things to worry about, what's going on in their daily lives, which is the economy, their healthcare, the housing is going up. I think those are the things that the real people really care about. These petulant, like, I think Harry's like a petulant child. I don't think that at the end of the day, it's annoying, but you got better things. You got to worry about putting food on the table and having a roof over your head. So the petulant child becomes secondary. And also beyond these legal hurdles, there are strategic reasons why the royal family hasn't pushed harder for the title removals. First, pursuing the removal would require the monarchy to actively engage with Parliament on what many would see as a personal family dispute. I think William is completely done with him, and they're showing it just by their withdrawal. It risks politicizing the monarchy and drawing them into partisan political debate, something the institution has traditionally avoided. Second, the process would inevitably involve extensive public debate and Harry and Meghan's specific actions and statements. This would generate months of negative publicity and media coverage, potentially causing more damage to the monarchy than simply ignoring the issue. Third, there's the evidence of effectiveness. Even if their titles were removed, Harry and Meghan would still be prince and princesses by birth titles. Well, Harry would be essentially by birth and her just by marriage. Which I don't even think she's really considered a princess at this point. They would still be able to trade on their royal connections and status. King Charles III has appeared to have chosen a strategy of gradual exclusion rather than dramatic confrontation. The Sussexes have been removed from official royal duties, stripped of their HRH titles in practice, and excluded from major royal events. This achieves many of the same goals without the constitutional drama of formal removal. Again, I think that them ignoring him is the best way to do. If you've ever been involved in a narcissist, ignoring them is the absolute best thing you can do, and it's the worst thing that you can do to them. There's also the consideration of Harry's children, Archie and Littlebit, who are technically entitled to use the Sussex titles in the future. Removing the titles would affect not just Harry and Meghan, but their children and potential future generations. I've heard they've also applied for their passports and are asking for their HRH titles to be added to their UK passports in hopes, or if their kids wanted to get involved in the family business, so to say, in the future, that they could use them. However, I don't think William is going to want anything to do with that whatsoever. So recent reporting suggests that discussions about title removal have intensified with royal circles. In March 2025, sources indicated the royal family are prepared to sanction removal of the Sussex titles if further damaging bombshell claims about the monarchy. However, legal experts remain skeptical about the practicality of such action. Constitutional lawyers point out that legal hurdles remain unchanged regardless of the family's private wishes. Some experts have suggested that the monarch might have broader prerogatives, powers than commonly understood. So we'll see. Like I said, I think they themselves have bigger fish to fry as well. So I think that's another reason that they're not sticking their foot in the sand with this one. One legal analyst suggested that there is no reason why the sovereign cannot remove these titles, arguing the royal prerogative in relation to honors and titles is non-just judicial, meaning courts cannot review such decisions. So essentially, the courts, the parliament has no decision on who gets the titles. Why should the parliament have the decision of who gets it taken away? Why don't they just have the use of taking that? If they have the right to get them to use it, they should have the right to be able to take them away. This view is disputed by other constitutional experts who maintain the ducal titles as hereditary peerages and are protected by parliamentary law and cannot be removed by royal prerogative alone. The consensus among legal scholars appears to be that while the monarch might have some theoretical powers, the practical and political reality makes their removal extremely unlikely without clear parliamentary legislation. Prince William's reported views add another dimension to the debate. Sources suggest he views Meghan's use of royal titles for commercial purposes as disrespectful. All of her products have the little monarchy head, even their letterhead has like a crown, which why? Um, uh, he cannot unilaterally remove titles granted by his grandmother. So unfortunately, there's nothing he can do to take them away. So why haven't Harry and Meghan's Sussex titles been removed? The answer comes down to like three main reasons. First, the legal reality. Current law provides no mechanism for removing ducal titles except in cases of wartime treason. Parliament would need to pass new legislation specifically for this purpose. It's a very complex and political controversial process. Second, the political calculation. No government wants to spend time on what many see as a royal family drama. I just don't think they want anything to do with this. They have more pressing national issues to address. That is for sure. Housing, healthcare, economy go way above what's going on with Harry and Meghan. The third, the strategic consideration. The royal family appears to have decided that quiet exclusion is more effective than dramatic confrontation, which would generate negative publicity and potentially cause more damage to the monarchy. I think that their silence says everything. It just shows that they don't have to say anything. This like the strong stoicism that they have. It's like Harry and Meghan are just swirling and they're just staying strong. They're the eye of the storm. But the reality is that Harry and Meghan's titles exist in a constitutional gray area. While they can't be easily removed, their practical value has been significantly diminished through exclusion from royal duties and official function. This situation highlights the broader challenges facing the monarchy in the 21st century, balancing ancient constitutional traditions with modern public expectation and media realities. The debate over the Sussex titles isn't really about Harry and Meghan. It's about traditional institutions adapt to contemporary challenges while maintaining their constitutional integrity. It's the monarchy is got hundreds and hundreds of years of tradition, and it's so hard for them to, now that Parliament's involved, should Parliament get involved in the Dukism and that? I think that if the monarch can bestow the titles, they should be able to. I don't know what the opposite word of bestow is, to withdraw, take away. I think they should be able to take away their titles, especially if they've voluntarily left. That is a whole other thing. They have voluntarily left. They voluntarily don't want anything to do with the monarchy, but yet they want to trade on their tie to the monarchy, and it's just. It's just a bad look. It's just a bad look any way you look at it. So, anyways, let me know your thoughts. Should it be a parliamentary issue? Should it be a monarch issue? I don't know. Like I said, I always come down to common sense. To me, the common sense thing would be to do is to take away the titles, or for Harry and Meghan not to even use the titles, not even go there. I think if people would have a lot more respect to them if they just traded on their own qualities, which I'm not sure there's many. or they're not confident in what qualities they have as people. That's why they keep pushing their HRH titles, their Duke and Duchessness. I think that they should just drop it all. I think people would have just a lot more respect for them at the end of the day. That's my opinion. So just let me know your thoughts. Please like, subscribe, share, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.